On this Sunday night, a terrifying twister tears through an Alberta community.
What did you hear?
Just everything.
Is it?
Just the house just crumbling.
The devastation and stories from survivors. Unrelenting unrest in France. Why declaring a state of emergency may be pointless, and the new investigation into an attack on a politician's family. The sound of money. What's making concerts so costly and why cities are banking on big music acts. Plus, dynamite. The Saskatchewan community roaring into the record books.
Global National with Farah Nasser. Reporting tonight, Neetu Garcha.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. A small Alberta community is recovering tonight from a powerful tornado that ripped through the region yesterday.
Oh my God, there's so much debris, guys. Not good.
The twister touched down in Mountain View County, located roughly halfway between Calgary and Red Deer, destroying multiple properties. And while only minor human injuries have been reported, dozens of animals have died in the storm's wake. Carolyn Kury de Castillo surveyed the destruction and spoke with people who now have no place to call home, including one man who rescued his mother from the wreckage.
There's nothing left of the home Diane and Ray Kelsey lived in north of Carstairs. Farm equipment was picked up and tossed half a kilometer away. Trees uprooted.
She was, well, pretty much buried in the basement. And my son, he got her out. And so without getting too terrible emotional here, he's a hero in my eyes.
Ray wasn't at home when the tornado touched down, but his wife was, and so was his son, who lives across the highway.
What did you hear?
Just everything. Just the house crumbling.
Travis Kelsey and his wife and baby took shelter in the basement. As soon as he could, he rushed over to bring his mom to safety.
There was nothing. The house was flat. But I just wanted my mom out. I don't want to be a hero or anything.
The tornado caused damage to 9 homes, of which 3 were completely destroyed. Around 25 cows were killed or had to be put down, but no one was seriously injured.
It was a total disaster. I hate to say it, but it's just right out of the movies, just like the movie Twister. It was just leveled.
I'm telling you, I just started to cry. It was devastating to see my childhood property just totally demolished. Devastating. But and in the same token, I also know that we're going to be okay and it's only stuff.
Tornado expert Connell Miller says compared to other tornadoes typically seen in Canada, this is a more significant event with more damage and had the potential to cause far more destruction.
2 kilometers that way, there's a big subdivision, and a kilometer that way, there's a mobile trailer park, right? And it's amazing that none of that got hit, and it's amazing that the people that did experience this tornado weren't more injured than they were.
The twister was on the ground for at least 20 minutes and also resulted in hail damage. Carolyn Kury de Castillo, Global News.
And the plowing came through and took the top of the tree right off onto the roof.
That same low-pressure system that caused the tornado in Alberta made its way to Saskatchewan. Environment Canada says several storms carrying winds of almost 100 kilometers an hour ripped through the province yesterday. The storms hit multiple areas, including Meadow Lake, Battleford, and the Prince Albert National Park region. The winds eventually died out near the Manitoba border. So far, there have been reports of power outages, minor structural damages, downed trees, and golf ball-sized hail. A strong storm also wreaked havoc in Quebec, where 2 people, a man and a woman, are missing after being swept away by a landslide. The community of Rivière-Éternité, about 3 hours north of Quebec City, declared a state of emergency on Saturday after the slide collapsed parts of a major highway. Environment Canada says about 130 millimeters of rain fell within 2 hours. There are new calls for calm in France, where protesters have stormed the streets for another night, outraged over last week's police killing of a teenage boy near Paris. Police arrested about 700 people Saturday. That's about half compared to Friday. The biggest confrontations between riot police and demonstrators took place in Marseille, the country's second largest city. As the grandmother of 17-year-old Naël Merzouk asks for the rioting to stop, police have opened a new case. As Redmond Shannon reports, they've launched an attempted murder investigation after an attack against the family of a French mayor.
A new escalation in the violent protests that have seized France since Tuesday. Authorities say rioters rammed a car into the home of the mayor of Les-les-Roses, a suburb of Paris, then shot fireworks at his wife and young children as they fled. The mother is believed to have broken her leg during the ordeal.
Qualification de tentative d'assassinat.
The regional prosecutor says the attack is being investigated as attempted murder. On Sunday, locals offered support to the mayor, who was at the town hall when it happened. Vincent Jeanbrun says it will be 3 months before his wife can walk again. Before that eruption of violence, it had been a slightly quieter night in France, with about half the previous night's arrests, still numbering more than 700. Seething anger against alleged police brutality and racism after the shooting of 17-year-old Naël Merzouk. Imagine if it happened to my brother. We are not safe here, says this woman. But the heartbroken grandmother of the dead teen says enough is enough.
I blame the police officer who killed my grandson. That's all I'm angry with. And the people who are breaking things. I tell them, stop it, stop it. They're doing this with Naël as a pretext.
As President Emmanuel Macron held another crisis meeting, the tone from many lawmakers is toughening.
What's happening is ultra-violence by small groups of people that are very well organized and very well trained, and they want to defy the Republic. And the Republic will not yield, and we will fight back.
Macron's dilemma is that declaring a state of emergency to give police more powers may escalate the already palpable anger against those very officers. Redmond Shannon, Global News, London.
More than a week after Wagner's attempted coup threatened to derail Moscow's war on Ukraine, Russia resumed airstrikes on Kyiv overnight. This is the first such attack on the Ukrainian capital in 12 days. Military officials there say exploding drones and cruise missiles targeting the city were all shot down. One person was injured by debris. Fighting is intensifying in Ukraine's counteroffensive, with the push seeing some progress around Bakhmut and southern regions despite Russian resistance. In the U.S., another mass shooting has left 2 people dead and dozens more injured in Baltimore. The killings happened early this morning when gunfire erupted at a block party. Police believe at least 2 gunmen were responsible. No arrests have been made. The victims were an 18-year-old woman and 20-year-old man. They were among at least 28 people, including multiple children who were shot. 3 people are in critical condition tonight. More than 7,000 BC port workers are off the job for a second day.
The federal government must stay out of our business. If the BCMEA gets their way, and their way is to let the government make this collective agreement for them, there will never be labor peace on the waterfront.
Workers have been without a contract since March. The union says the BCMEA has refused to negotiate on the main issues. For its part, the Employers Association says it's tried to be flexible. As David Akin explains, given the port's significance to the Canadian economy, pressure is mounting on the federal government to be more assertive in ending the strike.
Week in, week out, the Port of Vancouver plays a central role in Canada's and indeed the world's supply chains. It's where Canada's canola, grain, potash, and other exports head to Asian markets. And it's where consumer and manufacturing goods begin their journey to Canadian destinations. More than 13% of Canada's overseas trade, or $300 billion a year, is handled by Pacific ports. But for the second day in a row, the ports in BC are quiet, brought to a standstill by workers striking for better pay and job security in an era of automation.
So if there's a long disruption, then we can start to see supply chains getting blocked and production getting halted, and that could have a knock-on negative effect on the country's economic reputation.
Worried about that kind of long-term economic damage, the Canadian Chamber of Commerce on Sunday argued that Parliament should be recalled to pass back-to-work legislation. And other business groups agreed, believing the union timed the strike for maximum effect.
Try and back people into a corner instead of actually negotiating sooner. I think it deserves Parliament being recalled.
The federal government will have no choice but to introduce a back-to-work legislation if this continues for a few more days. It's impossible to have the BC ports being not fully operational for more than a few days.
The Trudeau Liberals did use back-to-work legislation to end a strike at the Port of Montreal in 2021. But for now, the government does not appear ready to intervene. Labour Minister Seamus O'Regan is in Vancouver and said Saturday, the best deals for both parties are reached at the table. The NDP opposition agrees.
I think everyone's well aware of the stakes involved here when it comes to Canada's supply chain. And at the same time, these are the workers who got us through the pandemic and kept the supply chain running.
O'Regan, for his part, intends to stay in Vancouver until a deal is reached. David Akin, Global News, Ottawa.
Still in BC, the 16-year-old girl who was lost for more than 2 days in the wilderness is now sharing her story. Esther Wang went hiking with 3 others on Tuesday. In a statement, she says she took a wrong turn, separating her from her group, then fell down part of a mountain while trying to backtrack. After surviving 2 cold, scary, and lonely nights in the woods, Wang says she eventually found her way back by identifying landmarks from photos she had taken. This is the teen after she emerged from the forest Thursday night. Aside from minor injuries, Wang is home and unharmed and thanks everyone who tried to help find her. The enduring allure despite pricey performances. Coming up, how concerts are costing more than ever, yet not stopping fans from spending big on the shows. Plus, looking back on Pride Month and what growing protests against the LGBTQ2+ community could mean. Inflation is affecting everything these days, from food to fuel and even fun. Many people are shelling out big bucks to see their favorite singer in concert, and that's music to the ears of businesses and even politicians. Anne Gaviola looks at what's driving up the cost of concert tickets and the powerful effect superstars can have on the economy.
Whether it's Taylor Swift, Beyonce, Bruce Springsteen, or Shania Twain, fans are sparing no expense for the live music experience.
You push the price up on these concert tickets and people might complain, but they just don't want to miss out.
Concert ticket inflation is fueled by many things, including higher costs for putting on these elaborate productions.
That is a reality of the music business these days because costs are so much higher since COVID and because nobody is buying music anymore. Artists have to make all their money on the road.
But ticket sales are one part of the money-making equation. Add in merchandise, food and drinks, parking, maybe even a flight and hotel stay. Top acts can move the economic needle. Sweden blamed its higher than expected inflation rate in May on Beyonce's concerts. Taylor Swift's Eras Tour has the potential to generate $4.6 billion in consumer spending in the U.S. alone. Enough to prompt Australian lawmakers to petition her to add what would be a 6th concert in the country. Adelaide wants a show too.
My 6-year-old was very excited, and I will be speaking with all of my colleagues and potentially doing a grievance in Parliament next week to try to encourage Taylor to please come to town.
Edmonton MP Matt Genereux says he's following Australia's lead and filing an official grievance to entice Swift to add a Canadian stop.
Look, I could listen to the music online. I could watch music videos. I could do any number of ways to consume these particular acts, but it's the ability to take a selfie of me in the crowd saying, look where I am.
Acts that can draw multiple generations have an edge, whether that's parents attending with children or new fans and nostalgic ones.
People may complain at the beginning when they, oh my God, tickets are so expensive. But when you go to the show and you have that communal experience and it's with one of your favorite artists, well, then it was worth it. You got your money's worth.
Anne Gaviola, Global News, Toronto.
Sunscreen savvy. Ahead, we look at some summer skin protection myths and facts. Summer is in full swing, and as many people try to spend more time outdoors in the coming weeks, doctors are reminding people to lather up with sunscreen. As Catherine Ward reports, it's easy to overlook some important factors when protecting your skin from the sun.
Working outside, it's super important to be on top of it.
Pop open the lid.
Protect yourself. It's important.
And lather up. Now that summer is here, experts are urging people to put on sunscreen often.
They say reapplying every 2 hours at minimum.
We recommend an SPF of at least 30.
But just looking at the SPF rating is only one consideration. Doctors say looking at the finer details of the sunscreen label will let you know if your sunscreen is up to the job. UVB rays are responsible for sunburns. Dermatologist Dr. Sunil Kalia says most people don't apply enough sunscreen for it to be as effective as the SPF rating suggests.
And there have been studies showing that the higher SPF levels of at least 100 do work better than a 50, preventing like a sunburn reaction or other sun-induced reactions.
Just apply it liberally and really work it into the skins to make sure you're getting that coverage that's so important.
Beauty editor Jill Dunn says protection from UVA rays is also critical.
They're known as the aging rays.
The best bet is a broad spectrum sunscreen that helps mitigate the risk of both. Mineral sunscreens are one option, even though not everyone likes how they look.
They do appear more white on the skin.
And do not be tricked by cloudy weather or advertising.
Unless you're like inside in a dark room and air conditioning, you're not really blocking the sun. It's really everywhere.
Sage advice for a safer summer. Catherine Ward, Global News, Toronto.
Pride Month reflections. Next, how celebrations in Canada's biggest city went as backlash against the LGBTQ2+ community grows. June was Pride Month, and as the calendar flips to July, it's a chance to take stock of how things went. Joining us now is the Executive Director of Pride Toronto, Sherwin Modeste. Sherwin, thanks for joining us. I'm sure you've been reflecting on your big event of the year, the Pride Parade. How would you describe the overall experience and success of that celebration?
Oh, thank you for having me. And I must say that, you know, we delivered. Overall, Pride 2023 was a tremendous success in so many different ways, not just in the talent that we brought to Toronto, but the allyship and the support that we got from community spoke volume to the support that is there for the 2S LGBTQ community.
Sure, that will be reassuring for many to hear, especially as our conversation comes at a time of great challenges for the LGBTQ2+ community, from the stabbing incident at Waterloo, the defacing of rainbow sidewalks, just to name a few. How have you and Toronto Pride navigated these obstacles and a general rise in hate?
Yeah, so you know what? One of the things that we did in Toronto was we were very upfront that there is an increase in hate in the community. We asked the community to be the community best security by looking out for each other. But we also were able to put different security measures in place. So we hired more of our private security to ensure that our stages, our parade, our street fair, you know, have additional security. So for us, it was really important to send that message. But also, you know, we were very clear that there is no room in the festival, there is no room in our society for the hate. So we definitely think we scare a lot of the haters, for lack of a better word, away.
And that's talking about Pride Month and the Pride Parade, but looking forward, what are Toronto Pride's goals or plans in terms of addressing the issue of anti-LGBTQ2+ hate?
Yeah, no, and this is very important, because now that the festival is over and the world was present in Toronto, and folks saw what an amazing pride we were able to put on. I think this is the time now that we call on all three levels of government to hold folks accountable. There is no room. We can no longer sit by and just allow that level of hate towards LGBTQ community continue. So there is going to be a ramp up of advocacy from Pride Toronto to ensure that all levels of government are taking this serious. You know, no matter who is at the head, they need to take the hate that is directed towards LGBTQ community serious.
Speaking of advocacy, advocates have spoken out concern for the mental health and well-being of the LGBTQ2+ community. What's the sense you've gotten from your discussions of how people are doing?
You know, we had so many requests for folks saying, you know, I just don't feel safe coming out. And as an organization, we take it serious. Hence, we're also going to be ramping up our activities throughout the year, having Pride 365 to create a safe space, to create an avenue whereby which folks will be able to come out.
Our conversations will indeed continue, but we'll leave it there for now. Once again, that's Executive Director of Pride Toronto, Sherwin Modeste. Sherwin, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
And that is Global National for this Sunday night. I'm Neetu Garcha. This long weekend, one Saskatchewan town celebrated Canada Day differently than anyone else. This is Dundurn, where more than 1,100 people showed up for a prehistoric party, setting a Guinness World Record for the biggest gathering of inflatable dinosaur costumes, smashing the previous record of 380. The town's population is only 675, meaning the town had more dinosaurs than actual residents. I don't know what to tell you. Thanks so much for watching. Hope to see you here again tomorrow. Have a great night.